Hello there, my name is Mrs. Peters and I'm here to introduce to you a life-changing opportunity. Are you tired of searching for a job, or you are constantly being told that you do not qualify for a particular job due to lack of skill or experience? Then worry no more.
Welcome to topic 7. Topic 7 is quite an interesting topic and it's titled Project Risk Management. Project Risk Management. That's what we call topic 7, Project Risk Management. If you check your course outline, you will see that topic 7 is Project Risk Management. Now, one of the most difficult things to manage on earth is managing uncertainty. You know, if I tell you to manage a sick person now, you know the person is sick. If I say manage a building, you know we are managing a building. But how do you manage what you don't know you are managing? Somebody say, come and take care of what you don't know you are taking care of. This is because risk is uncertainty. Risk is actually not knowing exactly what will happen. So how can you manage what you don't know will happen? You see, if we know that it's going to rain now, you say I should manage it, then I was okay. My clothes, I'm going out, I won't spray my clothes outside. Say I'm managing the risk. But now, in risk management, we are managing that situation. But in risk management, you actually don't know what will happen because you don't know what risk really is. So first of all, before we begin the management of risk, we will look at what is risk. What is risk? First and foremost, we have risks in HSC. HSC is Health, Safety and Environment. In Health, Safety and Environment, they define risks as anything harmful because they talk about health. You understand? But in the case of project management now, we look at risks from both the positive parts and both the negative parts. So we are not considering risks only as something harmful. We are not trying to see, can risks also be beneficial? Can you end up benefiting from risks? And that is why project management goes deeper than where health stops in the area of risk management. So the big question now is, what is risk? What is risk? Risks in project management can be defined as something that might happen. If it does happen, then it could have a positive or negative impact. So I will say it again so I will get it very well. I said risk is something that might happen. If that thing does happen, it could have a positive or negative impact. Now, look at the word we said. We say risk is something. We will pick some of the keywords here and you will see that everything about risk is uncertainty. Risk is something. It might happen. If it does happen, if it does, it could have a positive or negative impact. You can see, if you look at this definition carefully, you will see that when you say something, if I say I have something to give you now, what am I giving you? If I say I have something to give you, I'm actually not telling you anything, I'm giving you something. You cannot go home and say you know exactly what I'm giving you. See? Now the next one, they say it might happen. You see, if you say something might happen, there's also possibility that it might also not happen. Now we say if. All of us know that if is a conditional statement. If you do this, I will do this. If you come here, I will. You see, it's conditional. That's why risk is uncertainty from beginning to end. They say if it does happen, that means it can also does not happen now. Then they say it could have a positive or negative. So from the beginning of this definition downwards, everything seems to be either it happens like this or it doesn't happen like this. And that is what makes it uncertainty, because you don't know exactly what will happen. Now they say go and manage a situation where you don't know if something will happen or not happen. Let me give you let me make an illustration for us. If you have a friend and you pick your phone and you call your friend, you say, friend, where are you? And the friend say, I am somewhere. And you say, who are you with? He say, I'm with somebody. You say, what are you doing? He say, I'm doing something. When are you coming back? He say, I'm coming anytime. Has that friend told you anything? He has not told you anything. But you see, you can end that discussion with that person for 5 minutes thinking the person, you communicated, but you didn't get anything. So the person actually said nothing to you, but he was saying something to you. That's the same thing with risk. Are you seeing it? He said nothing to you, but he was saying something to you. That's why we say risk is something. We can be telling you something and nothing, we are not saying anything. So how do you manage such a situation? And that is what makes risk management one of the most delicate topics in project management, because here you're dealing with uncertainty. Here you're dealing with what you don't know could happen or could not happen. And that is why you see most people, when you tell them you have a project for them or you have a contract for them, and then you tell them that that contract is very risky, they will just give up. They say no, they are not interested, because their assumption is that risk is something that must turn out to be what? Negative or dangerous. I don't know if you understand. Once you say, I have a contract for you, but this contract is very risky, the person will say, count me out. Because you mentioned the word risky, but the person will only say, count me out if he's an unprofessional. But any professional project manager, if he say it is risky, you understand that yes. Now, if he say there's no risk, he will be suspecting a project without risk, because life that we are living is even risky. For you to go to bed and say, no human being can go to bed and beat his chest and say, I am sure I will see the next morning. Nobody can try that kind of a thing. Everybody who goes to bed used to say, by the grace of God, if I see tomorrow. Abi? Because if you dare open your mouth and say you must, then you see forces will come against you, say, who do you think you are? This is because the life you're living is risky. So that is why if you have a project or a business, you don't run away because they say it has risks. What you do as a professional is, if a project has risks, what you do is to calculate the risks. I'm going to be giving us the steps involved in managing risks. Now, I will show us all the computation and calculation involved in managing risks. So if you have a project or a contract, what you do is that you run that contract through the calculation involved. Now, at the end of the calculation will show you whether the risk is high or low. Then you now make your decision based on whether it is high or low, but only when you have done the what? The computation and the what? And the analysis. Are we together? Okay, so you see that now there will be every need for us to understand the computation before we make conclusion about whether we should take a project or not take a project. Now, before we also go to the steps involved in managing risk, there's something I also need to tell us. There are business people who want to go into certain projects and contracts, but they need somebody who is a professional to tell them if they should go ahead or not. Like in Nigeria, during the Boko Haram insurgency, during the Goodluck Jonathan era, when the Boko Haram guys were taking over all the territories in Maiduguri, somebody got a contract to supply 500 bags of gari, but he was afraid. The supply was to be done in Maiduguri, and the guy stays in Abuja. The guy was afraid because he feels that what if I make my supply that day, and the day my goods just reaches, the day those guys were taking over all the territories then in Maiduguri. So he was afraid, what if I land my goods today and the guys decide to open fire? Because those guys were crazy then, if you remember. Now, what the guy needed to do is to go and consult a risk manager or a project manager. This is the situation on ground. This is a big contract for me, but I'm afraid. Are you seeing it? Now, you as a professional, you cannot be afraid when your customer is afraid. If you're afraid, then you are not supposed to be the risk manager. That's why we train people, train you to become professional manager. When the person brings you to say, okay, it's okay, I've gotten all the information. The person pay consultation fee, because you're going to do serious work for me. He has to pay consultation fee. Then you begin to run the analysis for him. Then you give him 2 or 3 days to come and get the feedback. Are you seeing it? It's just like going to see a medical doctor in the hospital and you say you have toothache. No doctor will attend to you if you don't pay consultation fee. So on no account should any professional in in risk management start any business in this area without collecting consultation fee. It's a taboo. Here, you must collect your consultation fee before you begin managing risk for anybody. So we'll just now go straight to, because I promised that we'll look at the steps involved in managing risks. Steps involved in managing risk. So how do we now that we now know what risk is, we'll now go into how to manage the risk. So we'll write steps involved in managing risk. So we'll be having something like step 1, step 2, like that. So the first one is step 1. Step 1 is called identify the risk. Identify the risk. That's step 1, identify the risk. Now we are going to do it this way. We will not begin to write all the steps, then we'll begin to explain. No, we'll do it step by step. Each step we'll write, we'll explain to you what it actually means so that you follow us carefully. Now we're looking at how to manage risks, and we'll say step 1, identify the risks. Remember that when we started this program, this course, we said you cannot manage risks when you don't know what you're managing. One of the most difficult things to do in managing risks is to manage what you don't know. And that is why the first thing is to identify the risk. It's when you identify the risk that you can now be able to manage it. You can't be in control of what you don't know about. Are we together? You can only be in control of something you understand. So first step is identify risks. Now there are 2 kinds of risks. The first one is called business risk. Business risk. And the second one is called generic risk. We have business risk, and then we have generic risk. Now, business risks are those risks that are peculiar to the particular project you have on ground. That means that you cannot find this kind of risk anywhere. If, for example, now I'll give you an example of business. I say it's a risk that is peculiar to the particular project you have on ground. That means that if you have a project like poultry farm, now what are those risks or what are those diseases that are peculiar to birds? We have coccidiosis, we have Newcastle disease, we have bird flu. Now, if I am constructing road, if the contract I have is to construct road, will I bother myself about Newcastle disease? Because Newcastle disease has nothing to do with construction of road. Newcastle disease even has nothing to do with cassava plantation. You can only find that disease only in poultry business. And that is why they call that kind of risk business risk. You can only find them in the area of that project. Are we together? Then the next one we have is generic risks. Generic risks are those risks that affect any and every kind of project. That means regardless of the kind of project you have on ground, generic risks can affect it. So if you say, I'll give you an example. For example, we say political instability, we say economic instability, we say socio-cultural challenges, we say technological advancements, we say legal issue, and we say natural disasters. Let me run through the examples again. I said number 1, political instability, economic instability, socio-cultural challenges, technological advancements, socio-cultural challenges, legal issues, natural disasters. Now look at these examples we mentioned. You agree with me that if you pick one of the examples we gave for generic risks, if we look at one of the examples we gave with generic risks, you will see that generic risks are always, they can affect anything. When you say political instability, if you are constructing a road or you have a poultry farm, and let's say maybe you are in an environment, and after an election in your environment there was a crisis. If after an election there was crisis and people are running about, let's say they have this, we no go greeting after election and everybody's running. You cannot be talking of taking care of your project when people are running from one place to the other. Why? Because there's political crisis. You can see that generic risk can affect any and every kind of project. That's why they call them generic. Same thing with economic instability. It can affect if there is inflation, if there is boom, if there is recession, it can affect any and every kind of project. That's generic for you. Socio-cultural, for example, now, if you go to maybe a place like South Africa and you know of this xenophobic attack where South Africans only want people from their country to do well. Now, if there is xenophobic attack in South Africa or in any part of the country, you will find out that people in that area will be trying to safeguard their life and not the project again. Regardless of the project you have, your life will be more important to you first. You can see that these generic risks, they affect any and every kind of project. This is step 1. You cannot manage risks if you don't find out this. Are we together? So we go to step 2 now. Step 2 is called perform qualitative risk analysis. Perform qualitative risk analysis. So how is qualitative risk analysis done? Now, if you want to perform qualitative risk analysis, what you need to do is this. You need to get to a point whereby you find out the probability that that risk will take place, and then you find out the impact. You understand what I'm saying? So if there is a risk, if there's a particular project, you say, what is the probability that this particular project will take place? Do you understand what I'm saying? What is the probability that it will take place? Now you now say, okay, the probability that it will take place is 50%. But mind you, the person that will give you the probability that this particular project will take place is a professional. So I will give an example for us to be able to see how it is done. So let's take an example now for the poultry farm example we have been using. Now, if you have a poultry farm project, now you need, who do you need here to tell you if this particular birds will contract diseases or not? You need a veterinary doctor. Now, when you get a veterinary doctor will ask you certain questions. Questions like, where do you intend to situate this business? How many are they? When are they? How many? When? Which period of the month? Say, for example, you now say, just say, for example, you now say, we are going to situate this business in a populated area, a crowded environment. The veterinary doctor will take note of that. That's one. Then two, if you now say you have 1 million of them, 1 million, then the next question you ask you, what period of the year do you intend to start this particular project? Now, if you say, let's say, for example, you say July. July is raining season, right? So he takes note of raining season, he takes note of the number of poultry, then he takes note of the environment you're doing it. Then you see he will now come up with something like this. He will now tell you that, okay, let's do like this, business risk. He will now come like this and tell you the probability, the impact. And that's okay. Let's take, for example, now, we have something like coccidiosis now. I think I've mentioned this before, coccidiosis. I mentioned Newcastle disease. Then I think I also mentioned bird flu. Okay, now we are looking at the probability that these birds will contract this disease, right? So the man or the woman tells us, the professional tells us that the probability that will contract this disease is 60% or 50%. Now, when they give you a probability of 50% like this, 50% in probability simply means that that particular thing can what? It can happen, and it cannot also happen. That's why it's 50-50. 50% means 50-50. It can happen, it might not happen. Then the next question is, what's for Newcastle disease? You say, well, Newcastle disease is not too prevalent, so 40%. You said, okay, how about bird flu? He said bird flu 70%. Now, this professional has given you the probability that these birds can contract these diseases. Now, the next question is, if they do contract this disease, what do you do to actually fix it? Or what vaccine do you give them so that they don't contract the disease at the first place? So the professional will tell you something like this. Coccidiosis, the vaccine for coccidiosis is 1 naira per head. Assuming that we are in Nigeria, so I'm using naira. Now, when they say 1 naira per head, that simply means that for one of the poultry, if you want to vaccinate them, you buy a drug of 1 naira. So now, what do? You now multiply 1 naira times the total number of birds. Let's say we have 1 million of them. 1 naira times 1 million will give us 1 million naira. So you come under impact. You come under impact and write 1 million naira. Then you come to Newcastle disease. How much does the vaccine cost for Newcastle disease? And maybe they sell you, maybe it tells you that it's 50 kobo. Now, 50 kobo times 1 million naira, times 1 million of the poultry will give you 500,000 naira. Now, the next question is the price for the vaccine for bird flu, and it says it's 1 naira, for example. So you say 1 naira times the total number, which is 1 million naira. Now, if you look at the board, we have gotten probability and impact. What did we say risk is? We say risk is something that might happen. If it does happen, it could have a positive impact or a negative impact. Now, we have told you the possibility of it happening, and we have told you what it will the impact, what it will cost if it happens. So with this, you have done what we call qualitative risk analysis. So step 2 is done once you get the probability and then get the impact. Then probability is settled. Are we together? All right, the next thing that we'll move to is what we call step 3. Step 3 is called perform quantitative risk analysis. So you see, while step 2 is perform qualitative risk analysis. Step 3 is called perform quantitative risk analysis. So you have something like this, perform quantitative risk analysis. You can see the difference is in qualitative and then quantitative. So how do we perform quantitative risk analysis? If you want to perform quantitative risk analysis, what you do is to find a formula for risk. Risk has a formula. The formula for calculating risk is equals to probability times impact. Let me come again. The formula for calculating risk is what? Risk is equals to probability times impact. So we write something like this. We say risk is equals to probability times impact. Now, we are very conscious of the fact that there are people who do not like mathematics. There are people who have gone to school to study law or study sociology, and so they don't want anything mathematics. My computation here is very simple. You are not the one to get these things. A professional gets the probability and the impact for you. Your own is just to simply do multiplication. 50 times, probability is risk times, risk is equal to probability times impact. Are we together? Then now they have given you probability, they have given you impact. So what do? 50% times what? 1 million. 50% times 1 million. So 50% times 1 million. So if you have your phone or your calculators, all you need to do is to punch 50% times 1 million. So 50% times 1 million will give us what? 50% times 1 million will give us 500,000. Am I right? Please help us confirm the value for 50% of 1 million. Help us confirm if it is so that we don't give wrong answers here. Okay, 500,000. So we have 500,000. So there's a 500,000. So we move to the next one. 40% times 500,000 is what? 40% times 400,000. 500,000, sorry. 500,000 again. So we have 200,000. So we say 200,000. What is the correct answer you are giving us? Okay. So the next one is 70% multiplied by 1 million naira. 200,000? 700,000. Okay, so we have 700,000 here. Now you see we have calculated the risks for each of them. So the next thing to do now is to add them up. So you help us add 500,000 plus 700,000. Sorry, 500,000 plus 200,000 plus 700,000 is equals to what? 500,000 plus 200,000 plus 700,000 is equals to what? 1.4 million. So then you now come under this place and write risk total for what you are doing for business risks. Risk total for business risks is equals to 1 million, yes, 400,000, right? 400,000. So you now do like this, 400,000. So this one now becomes your value for risk, business risk total. So that means that if you have a project sponsor, you need to charge your project sponsor 1.4 million naira for unforeseen contingencies as far as business risk is concerned. Now, if everything does not go, if everything goes like this, assuming now you begin the project and some of them begin to contract disease, you know, sometimes with this example we gave, you see these birds begin to turn their head one side. Now, if these birds begin to turn their head, you don't need to pick your phone and begin to call the sponsor. Oh, this chicken, I don't know what's wrong with them. Why are you calling the sponsor? That's why you are a professional. That's why you said they should give you 1.4 million naira, Abi, for unforeseen contingency, because you'll be able to sort out everything. You see why? Are you seeing why people are looking for professionals to handle their business for them? Because they will not come and be giving you unnecessary disturbance. Oh, you're supposed to have done this. Oh, you're supposed to have called. Oh, this, oh, that. No, there's no need for that because everything is already what? Settled. Now, it is the same analogy that we did. It's the same analogy that we did for business risks that we also do for generic risks. That means if we are doing for, assuming we are doing for generic risks now, let me just give us a quick one how it also looks for generic risks. Now, if we are doing for generic risks, so here will be generic. Now, remember, we just pick some example now. You see, it will almost be the same thing. If you are doing for generic risks, that means you can come here and say political instability, economic instability. You can now pick natural disasters, for example. Then you see, now you also need a professional to give you the probability and the impact. What is the probability that there will be political instability in that environment? What is the probability that there will be economic instability? What is the probability that there will be a natural disasters? So you get their probability. Then what will it cost you if these things happen? If there is a political instability and the whole project amounts to nothing, what will it cost you to fix it up to start again? That's what we call impact here. So you see, at the end of the day, you get your impact for all of them. You do the same multiplication, you get your total. So when you get your total, you have already found out of business risks before, right? So you add this 1.4 million naira with the one you will get for generic risks. That becomes your total risk. And that is the amount you will take to your budget. Remember yesterday we talked about budget, where we spoke about budget, quotation, and the others. So for a budget now, you will see that you can now take the total of this and that to your budget as unforeseen contingencies. So this amount will settle risk. So that means if there is any problem that arises, there will be no need running hectare-skelter. You just go here and pick that money and sort out that problem. That is step 3 for you. So we move over to step 4. We move over to step 4. Step 4 is referred to as risk response matrix. Risk response matrix. Risk response matrix. What do we do under risk response matrix? What do we do? Under risk response matrix, what we usually do is just to find out the particular response we give your project sponsor. Now, remember the example I gave you. I said somebody came to you and now said he wants to supply bags of Gary somewhere. But the problem the person was facing or is facing is, how do I know if I should go ahead or not go ahead? So you see now, now that they gave that particular assignment to now, what you do now is you now come to, this is where the person is waiting for your response. The person is waiting for your response in step 4, risk response matrix. So we actually have a matrix. Let me show you the matrix you will consult before you advise that person. If you want to advise that person, there's a matrix we have. This place we call here acceptance. We call here rejection. And then we call here mitigation. And then we call here transfer. You can see, that means there are 4 decisions. 4 decisions. You know, ordinarily, if you're not a professional, what will come to your mind is either we accept or we reject. Are we together? But now, as a professional, you know that it goes beyond just accepting and just rejecting. That means you can accept, you can reject, you can transfer, and you can mitigate. So there are 4 options other than just 2. Now, in the case of transfer, before you advise anybody to transfer, 1, the probability, this is the way we write it, the probability must be very low, the impact must be low. Are you seeing it? Remember that you have done the computation of probability and impact, so you know that one. So we will also give you the values of probability of when they are high and low, so that you know when the probability is high or when it's low. So, but when the probability is low and the impact is low, then you can accept. When the probability is high and the impact is high, then you can tell them to reject. Remember, you see now, this one is better than somebody who just come to you and just say, Boko Haram, Medugri, no, reject it. Because you do not understand that there is a process. You'll be surprised that the person can supply his goods to Medugri and nothing will happen if you actually know how to go about your computation carefully. Then we have another ones they call mitigation and transfer. So let's look at transfer. Transfer is a situation whereby you accept a project, but then you pass it on to somebody else. Maybe because you don't have the capability, or maybe you're not chanced, or maybe you feel somebody else will do it better than you. So we call that method transfer. But one thing with transfer is that it means that you accepted that project. Do you understand? For transfer, you have already accepted the project. Whether you like it or not, you accepted it, but now you want to give it to somebody. So what is the condition before you tell somebody to accept transfer? The condition for transfer is that the probability will be high and the impact will be low. Now, why is it so? If the impact is low, that means that even if you transfer it, anything happens, there's no much problem. You can handle whatever comes out from it. That's the meaning of low impact. Now, for mitigation, mitigation actually means to cushion down or to reduce the impact of something. That means if something has high impact and then you have what it takes to reduce the impact, then we use what we call mitigation. For example, now, if you can employ the insurance company, if you can bring in the insurance company to come and maybe you pay the insurance company certain money they call premium. Now, what happens is that when you pay the insurance company that premium, the insurance company now will be part of those that will bear the loss for you if anything goes wrong. Now, in that situation, you alone are not bearing the burden. Are we together? So you see that now, for that particular one now, the probability needs to be low and then the impact needs to be high. If the impact is high, the insurance company or whatever agency you use will help in reducing the cushion of it. For example, the Nigerian Army also transport goods from war zone area to a less water zone area. So people used to think that the Nigerian Army, the only thing they do is just to secure territory. No, if you have goods in a war zone area or you in an area you want them to come and carry it for you, they can also do that for you. They'll use their van and come and take it from you from a war zone area to a peaceful area or to a peaceful area to war zone area, as the case might be. So by that, you see, you settle them something. Now, when you settle, you see, you are reducing the impact. And that is why we call this one mitigation. Mitigation means that you have accepted it too. So mitigation is like acceptance and transfer. These three, the acceptance. Here, total acceptance, you are not doing anything. Here, you accept and pass to somebody. Here, you accept and look for a way to reduce the effect. Then this is the only place you are not accepting at all. You are telling them, no, don't pick this particular project. I hope we are learning. This is what makes you a professional risk manager, when you learn all these techniques. Now, you see, you cannot just come up and not tell somebody emotionally yes or no. There's a method. If you go to some professionals, you see this particular thing, they have it as a calendar in their office. They hang this thing at the back of their office. So because they may not have time to start putting all this thing in their head, but if they make computation, they'll just turn to their curtain in their office and say, okay, the probability is high and the impact is high. What do we do? They now pick it here and I'll tell you what to do. After they must have done careful calculations. And that is what we call calculated risks. When you hear people say, let's do calculated risks, this is what we call calculated risks. You have taken your time to calculate the risks before either accepting or rejecting. That is called step 4. Then let me show us somebody will ask now that how do I know when the probability is high? How do I know when the probability is low? So let me show you how you will know if the probability is high and if the probability is low. Now, if the probability is high, this is the figure. So we say probability high is you have 60% to 100% is high probability. Moderate probability, moderate, let me write it out, moderate probability, MP, moderate probability. We have we have from 40 to 50%. Then we have low probability. We have 39% and below. So now, you see, with this particular thing on the board now, when you make your calculation and you find your probability, all you now need to do is to say, okay, let's assume you get 73. You will now go back 73%. You now say 73. Where is 73? 73 falls under high probability. So you can now make your decisions carefully based on the fact that now you now understand that the probability for 70 means high, the probability for 60 means, for 50 means moderate, and the probability for 20 means what? Low. So with this particular thing you have on the board, you can now be able to know when your probability is high, low, or moderate. So it will help you. Then the next step we are going to now is the step we call step 5. Step 5 is called control risk. Control risk. Step 5. Control risks. Now, what do we do in control risks? Remember, I've said so much about control. I said control means actual versus what? Planned. Now, when we are looking at actual versus planned, we come here like this, we say actual. What are we actually doing now? What did we plan to do? Remember that plan is knowing what to do and knowing how to do it. So now you say for the plan, have we identified risks? Yes, we have identified risks. Have we performed qualitative risk analysis? Yes, we have done that. Have we done quantitative analysis? Now, if these are all the things we should do, now, in the real sense, have we done what we are supposed to do? If we have not done anything we are supposed to do, we begin to find out what is the problem. Why are we not doing what we are supposed to do? That is control. If we have done it, how do we improve so that we get a better result? That is control. So control actually means you find out if what you are doing is in line with what you plan to do. If it is in line, fine, you find a way of improving. If it's not in line, you find a way of finding out what went wrong. Are we together? So you sort that out. That's what happens in step 5 that we call control scope. So you see, with this knowledge we have given to you now, all you need to do now is when anybody comes to you that he has a particular project, but he's thinking he doesn't know if he should go ahead, he's afraid. Now, you are not supposed to complain again. The person has just brought a business to you. Let me tell you something. Most of the problems and complaints people bring are businesses, but because people are not trained, they say, please carry your wahala and go, carry your problem and go, simply because what? They are not trained. You can see what not being trained is causing. Somebody brings a particular, my hand is not in this one, please carry and go. Meanwhile, it's something you can collect and even make 10 million, 5 million, 3 million, 1 million, depending on the rates of the particular business the person wants to do. So I believe we have been educated now on risk management. We are no longer novice as far as risk management is concerned. Then lastly, let me tell you something before we go to topic 8. Risk managers, a project manager is already automatically a risk manager, because in project management we teach you risk management, but somebody can go to school and study only risk management. That means he's a risk manager, but he's not a project manager. So a project manager is automatically a risk manager, but a risk manager is not automatically a project manager because he has not studied project management. Are we together? All right, so now we'll now go to topic 8. Topic 8 is called project procurement management. Project procurement management. Now, in project procurement management, what do we mean by procurement? The word procure in project management means to acquire. Anytime you hear the word procure, it means to acquire. Now, most people work in an organization and they don't even find out what is going on in the procurement department. Have you ever wondered what goes on in the procurement department? See, most people don't take their time to find out what goes on in the procurement department simply because they feel it's not their department. They will say, me, I'm in the human resource department. Me, I'm in the health department. I'm in the legal unit. I don't have any concern with what goes on in the procurement department. You need to be concerned with what goes on in the procurement department, because in the procurement department, that's where they do all the buying of everything your organization needs. Just take, for example, you are working in a hotel. For example, if you are working in a hotel, if that hotel is producing chicken and chips is Irish potato. Now, and most of these hotels, they don't farm Irish potato. So where do they get it from? That means somebody is doing what? Supplying it for them. Now, who is supplying it for them? Some of them, they make soup, they buy crayfish, they buy pepper, they buy a lot of things. So who supplies all these things for them? Because they don't have the farm, they don't have the store. Somebody is supplying all these things. And some of these hotels are very, 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 very big hotels. But most young people just rely on the white-collar jobs. And they don't want to... There's nothing wrong in relying on the white-collar job. But one can also stick out his neck to find out what is exactly going on. How do you people get your raw materials you use in this organization? Somebody is doing the acquiring. So in project procurement management, we are going to teach you what it takes to procure. We'll teach you how to set up your own business. We'll teach you how to prepare for a contract interview. Then we'll teach you the contractor's mentality. Then we'll teach you how to fight for a contract. See, by the time we are done with you, you'll be able to pursue a contract. Why? Because we'll be equipping you with what it takes to pursue a contract. So the first thing we are going to look at now is we need to understand what they call the make or buy strategy. It is called what? Make or buy strategy. Make or buy strategy. Now, what is this strategy about? What is the strategy of make or buy about? Now, The make or buy strategy is simply a strategy that tells us if the procurement officer is going to buy or produce whatever he wants to supply to the organization. Now you'll be wondering, why are they interested in whether you're going to buy or make it? Now the organization is very interested in whether you're going to buy or whether you're going to make, because they need to know how the materials you want to give to them, where it's going to come from. Who are the people you're purchasing from? Where are you producing it? Because they will have supervisors to monitor whatever you're doing. Remember that when you come for this thing, you're not the only person. If you come for a contract interview or you come for a bid, maybe they invite you to a bid, you will see a lot of companies and their representatives, everybody bidding the way you're coming to bid. For example, in Nigeria now, we have the NYSC now. NYSC always always bid for their uniform, the shoe, the stockings, and the cap. Somebody is producing it. You are thinking it falls from heaven. No, it does not. Somebody produces it somewhere. And those people that produce it, NYC will make sure they call them for an interview, first of all, and ask certain questions. And when you prove beyond reasonable doubt that you are capable, you can do it, then they award such contract to you. So you can be a copper, you can be a businessman, you can be anything. If you apply and you prove to them beyond reasonable doubt that you can do that particular supply, they give you. But here we actually do not call it supply, we call it procure. So rather than saying I want to make supplies, you say I want to procure. Now, the make or buy strategy is something every procurement officer must know. This is like just like in mathematics now. If you meet somebody who says he knows arithmetic very well, there is somebody that says he knows arithmetic very well, but the person say, I don't know what is 1 plus 1. How does it sound to you? That somebody says he knows arithmetic very well, but 1 plus 1 he does not know. You see, it shows that the person is not being sincere. So that's the same thing with procurement management. If you say you are a procurement officer, but you don't have an idea of make or buy, then you're simply telling us that you don't understand the simplicity of procuring. So let's look at the make or buy. We are going to be having a flow chart now. A flow chart is simply the hierarchy of what happens when we are making or buying. So let's start with the buy. Assuming NYSC now wants to buy a particular product. Now, NYSC will set up, or any organization that is procuring, will first of all come up with something they call a procurement list. A procurement list is like a list of things to buy. When somebody gets a paper and says, okay, I want to go to the market, I want to buy things. You know, you write things to buy, or buy pepper, or buy whatever. So here, we don't call it things to buy, we call it procurement list. You have to get used to our terminologies, because it's our terminologies that makes you the procurement officer. If you use the everyday language, no, you're not sounding like our own like a professional here. So we say procurement list. Now, after the procurement list, the next thing they will get down is what they call the vendors list. You see, rather than saying sellers, we call them what? Vendors. That means that if there is anybody you intend to purchase whatever from, the person's name must come under here. So for example, I've given you this contract. You will now write the list of all the people you intend to purchase from. So let's assume we are using NYSC as a case study. Now, NYSC will write the list of everybody they want to purchase from that will be part of the bid. Then after that, they will now do what they call invite to tender. What do we mean by invite to tender? Invite to tender simply means that you will now begin to what? Send a message to all the companies that you want to use. Either you send them private message through text message, or you send them private message through WhatsApp, or you send them private message by calling them on phone, text message. Any which way you are sending your message, you are inviting them. Inviting doesn't mean the person has gotten the contract. Inviting simply means that the person is now qualified to come and showcase and tell us why we should give him this contract. Are we together? So at the end of invitation, the next thing we have now is what? Scrutiny. They call it scrutinized tender or adjudicate tender. They call it scrutinized tender or adjudicate tender. Now, remember I told you invitation. Now, after they have been invited, they will now come. Assuming we have 500 companies that are bidding to supply NYSC uniform. If we have 500 companies that are bidding to supply NYSC uniform, then at the end of the day, we are going to scrutinize them. Each representative will come out and tell us why we should buy from him and not any other person. Are we together? So you see the first company comes out and say, we supply cap. So why should we buy the cap from you? You say, buy this cap from me because all my materials are bought from UK. Our machines are imported from Ghana. We do this. You see, you are telling us, you are giving us the reasons why we should buy from you. Then that is that about that. Then another company will come up again and say, we produce shoe. Our materials are bought from Great Britain. We supply via air. We do this. We do that. They are also simply telling you how they will supply. So at the end of the day, there's a team, a scrutinizing team. There's a panel that will now do what they call verification and now select. So they will go for a break, and when they come back, they will now do what they call selection. Now, at the end of selection, they will now give what they call letter of justification. Letter of justification is a letter they give to those who they have selected. That means if there are 500 companies that have applied, and they selected only 5, they will now issue them a letter. This letter is like what we talked about in chapter 3, when we talked about project charter. Now, you need this document. If for any reason you are given a particular project, but you forget to collect a project charter, that simply means that you are not legalized. That simply means that that company can come up tomorrow and say they didn't give you any particular project. Why? Because there is any proof that a project was given to you. Are we together? Are we together? That means that no project was actually given to you. So how do we know a project was given to you? Because you have a what? A charter. But here we call it letter of justification. Are we together? So there is a letter of justification here. Now watch. Even though my board is filled up, this is a flow chart. It will flow like this. Once they award you that letter of justification, the next thing they will set up a team to monitor you, to be sure that everything you say you will do is what you will do. So they have what they call they have what they call supervision. Are we together? Are you seeing it? So now they will supervise you. That means there is a team that will follow up. Okay, this person said he will bring his goods via air. This person says all his raw materials are from Great Britain. This person says all his raw materials. Then they have to verify so that you don't come and do what you didn't say. That means at any point in time, if you are found wanting, that means that the particular project can also be invalidated. The moment they find out that you are beginning to play pranks into that project, they can break down that project. That means that you have broken the contract. So that means when this letter of justification they are giving you, at the back of the letter of justification, there is what they used to write. They call it terms and conditions. These terms and conditions means that there are certain things you must meet. They will tell you at the violation of any of these terms, this project becomes, or this contract becomes invalidated. So you make sure that whatever you say you will do is what you're doing. That's what happens here. After supervision, they will now have what they call transport. Transport simply means the mode by which you bring whatever you say you're bringing. Then the last but not the least is called warehouse. You can see how this flow chart is going. This flow chart started this way and is going this way. And I told you, if you remember, I said if you have a procurement officer who says he has little or no idea about procurement, about make or buy strategy, it's just like somebody who says he knows mathematics but does not know what is 1 + 1. You remember I said something like that. There's no way you say you're a procurement officer but you don't know make or buy strategy. That simply means you don't know what you're saying. The only thing that makes any company to become confident in you by awarding you any contract is when you begin to even run through this flow. They may not allow you to run through everything, but at least when you begin to say 1 or 2 things, then it shows that this person understands this business. Are we together? Then the next one is make. You see, everything you have written here is just for buy. So when you go for a contract interview, and then they say, please, you say you're a procurement officer, you say, yes, I'm one. They say, please, can you help us run through the make or buy strategy? Just help us run through it. You see, you can't bring out your phone and say, please, can I Google? You can't say such a thing. You may be talking and they'll say it's okay. You may say, okay, for the buy, the first thing is procurement list, where you have this, then the vendors list. Maybe before you get here, they say it's okay. That means you have an idea. Are you seeing it? But you cannot come and say you don't know it. There are sins we call in project management, there are sins we call unforgivable sins. So please take down that, write it somewhere and don't forget. There are sins we call unforgivable sins. Unforgivable sins are things that you cannot say you don't know. As a professional, you don't say you don't know them at all. You don't even say you forgot them because you cannot say you forget 1 + 1. It's not possible. All right, so let's run through the make and see how the make looks. You see, we have the buy. Now let's look at the make. Now, for the make, this person is simply saying that why, for the person that is doing buy, the person that is doing buy is simply saying that even though I'm going to supply you this product, I'll end up buying most things. Here, this person is saying that almost what it takes to buy, I have everything to produce everything I want to supply to you. So if I'm supplying to you a potato, I don't need to go to somebody's farm and buy potato and then supply to you. That means in my own case, what I will do is that I will just go to the farm, my own farm, harvest from my farm, and then supply to you. That's the meaning of make. Are we together? So now let's go. We have the same thing that comes again is procurement list. After the procurement list, the next thing we have is what we call the vendors list. Yes, vendors list. It's just similar to that one, but there are a few differences. Now, the vendors list is also the list that tells you the people you're going to purchase from. Even though you are making, there is still tendency that you will buy one or two things. Let's assume we are talking of Irish potato and you have the farm for Irish potato. At the end of the day, you may still do what? You may still buy bags. You may not have the bags yourself. You may still buy them. So you also need to have a vendors list. So after the vendors list, you also invite to tender. Invite means that you call people and ask them questions why you should buy from them. Then we have what we call scrutinize. You scrutinize them, you choose, just like we did there. I'll show you where the difference comes in. Then we have what we call selection, where you select who you want to buy, whatever you want to buy from. This thing is very important in the procurement process. Then we have the next one they call letter of justification. So you see, it's still similar to the other one we said before, but I'll show you where the difference comes in. Letter of justification. So they also award you a letter. Then after letter of justification, we have supervising team. They'll start supervising you. Then the next thing, you can see where the difference is coming, manufacture. See, after supervision now, there is manufacture. That means they supervise you. The manufacture means that anything you have said you are going to supply, it is time for you to begin the production yourself. That means you are, at this point, you have gotten everything you need to get from outside. There will be no time you will now come and say if there's anything you want to buy again. No, buying is over for whoever is doing make here. If you are doing buy, you can still be buying even till the last day you want to supply. That's why your own is under buy. Are we together? But for the make now, you can't do that the moment we get to this point. That means everything must be manufactured. Then after this one, we have another, what we call transport. Transport is the mode by which you bring it. Then after transport, we have what we call, the last but not the least, is called warehouse. Now, let me tell you what happened at warehouse. Warehouse is a very delicate place. At warehouse, we have a warehouse manager. If, for example, now you are supplying NYC uniform and you have produced a jacket, let's say you produced 17,000 jackets, the warehouse manager is responsible to take down the total number of jackets you brought without buttons, the ones that were torn, the ones that came very good, and the ones that had no issue. So it is his duty or her duty to take down everything in your presence. So he will give you a form that you will fill to show that 20 were bad, 18 were good, this one were like this, like that. Now the problem with warehouse management is that if you meet an unsincere or a person that is not sincere, at the end of the day, let's assume we have something like this. Let me show you something. Assuming we have something like this now. Assuming we have something like this, let's say they say number damaged, number in good shape. So in your presence, the warehouse manager can write, both of you saw that 20 was damaged. Then they will write how much it costs for 20 to be damaged. Then they write the ones that are in good shape. They say 5,000 in your presence. Now, some people are so excited that they got contracts that they even forget to collect a duplicate of this. Now, some insincere warehouse managers, when you are gone, they will not come. Because you did not collect duplicates, and they have the duplicates and they have the main original copy, then they will come here. See, number of damage is what, 20, right? If the person includes 0 here, what does it mean? 200 are damaged. That means that now, if 200 are damaged, they are going to pay, your payment is going to be done based on whatever the warehouse manager supplies. You know, I told you this thing is practical in nature. That's why we have to tell you some of the practicality in real life, so that you don't only study as a theoretical candidate, you also learn as what? A practical person. So that because the business is practical, you can't go to the field where we are making supply and now begin to say, no, it was 20 I brought there. Oh, I don't know how it became. It was only 20 that was spot. We agreed. Now, manager, what are you saying now? We don't bring emotion in business. What we use in business is evidence. They will ask you, what is your proof? So now you now begin to say, okay, some people even come with camera. Some people video that day. Some people snap. Some people do a lot of things just to make sure that there is no discrepancy at this stage. Because remember that all your stress you have been doing, what they will pay you with is based on this paper. I hope we are following. And we know that the paper is very, very important. All right, so that's what happens there. So you take very good, take note of what is going on there, so that you make sure that everything goes well. So what I gave you now is what we call the make or buy strategy. That means that with this one now, you show that you have an idea of what procurement is all about. Remember, I also told you that we are going to teach you how to set up your own company. We'll teach you how to go for an interview. We'll teach you what to say and what not to say. So now we have given you the overview of what a make or buy strategy looks like. So now the next thing we need to now tell you before we go into contracts and contracting proper is to tell you some of the do's and don'ts of procurement management. It's very important. We need to tell you what? The do's and the don'ts before we begin to teach you about contracts, the do's and the don'ts of procurement management. Number one, first of all, when we say the do's and the don'ts, what we mean by do's and don'ts is there are certain things you are not allowed to do as somebody who wants to come into the business of procuring, and there are certain things you're supposed to do. So the first do, we are going to start with the do's. When I'm done with the do's, I'll clean the board. Let me do it early so that I don't get confused. We are talking about the do's and the don'ts. So I will start with the do's first. That means do's simply means the things you are supposed to do. The first thing you're supposed to do is before you come into this business is you must equip yourself with knowledge. Equip yourself with what? Knowledge. That's the first thing to do. What do we mean by equipping yourself with knowledge? Equip yourself with knowledge might be looking simple. Somebody will say, it's not just equip. No, you equip. There's a difference between equipping yourself with knowledge and equipping yourself with the right knowledge. So here we are talking about equipping yourself with what? With the right knowledge. Now, there are knowledge that you get that may not be the right knowledge here. So the right knowledge, first of all, you see the way we started it, we started by introducing the make or buy strategy to you. And we started by changing your ideas that you don't use supply here, you use acquire. You don't use sellers here, you use vendors. Are you seeing it? What are we doing? We're equipping you with the right knowledge. So that if you get there, you say, okay, I met 5 vendors. They say, okay, yes, a procurement officer is talking. When you reach there, you say, I gave it to the sellers. Because I want to supply. They say, excuse me, we are not doing supply here. Are you seeing it? So those things make your customers lose confidence in you. So that's the first do. Equip yourself with the right knowledge. The second thing is that you must improve your communication skills. Wow, this is very important. Very, very important because we are going practical. Equip your communication skills. Some people have good intentions, but they don't know how to express it. Now, in this business we are doing now, in this procurement business, you can't say, there are certain things you can't say, oh, this was what I'm supposed to say, oh, this is what I meant. But nobody is inside your mind. You, in this business of procurement, what you mean is what you should be saying. What you mean is what you should be expressing. What you mean is what you should be doing. Not, for example, you say, no, I didn't mean it this way, but your expression shows that this is what you mean. Remember that remember that in procurement, there are always plenty vendors. And imagine if you say you want to come and supply, let me just borrow the word supply, we don't use supply. Let's say you want to come and supply, for example, you want to supply 800 bags of cement to a company. Is it only you that is selling cement? There are many people that are selling. So imagine when you get there, you don't know how to communicate. And you go there and you say, you people are supposed to. They say, are you talking to us in this hard tone? You say, no, this is the way I talk. They say, please go and work on. There are people that will tell you, go and work on the way you talk. You say, no, this is the way I talk, or my tone is always high. Let me tell you, in this business, you must work on that communication skill because people relate with you based on what you're saying and not what is inside your mind. Hope we understand it. This is the first do's. You arrange yourself very well. Then number 3, you work on your confidence skill. Wow, this one is very important. You see, confidence is different from communication. Confidence means that this person